I'm Nick Altmeyer with linkinglewiscounty.com. We're here this morning with Ryan Piche, County Manager for Lewis County, and we're here to talk a little bit about this month ahead in Lewis County government. We have the Board of Legislator meeting that's coming up tomorrow night. That'll be at 5 p.m. Right here on the second floor in the legislative chambers at the old courthouse here in Lowville, right on State Street here.
And actually, Nick, if I could add one thing to that, we're actually starting not the official meeting, but at 4:15, the Dairy Princess and the Dairy Court are coming in, and we're launching our Naturally Dairy campaign.
Okay.
So we're trying to bring awareness to the dairy industry in Lewis County, the fact that milk prices are kind of low right now, and the dairy industry needs our support. So for the whole month of June, we're going to have a bunch of different events. June is Dairy Month, and we're kicking off that whole marketing campaign, Naturally Dairy, which goes right hand in hand with our Naturally Lewis economic development campaign, and that will be starting at 4:15 tomorrow night.
Okay.
So we'll have about 45 minutes of dairy activities with some milk and some cheese for the legislators to sample, and then we'll get into our meeting.
Great. And then the Naturally, now that you brought it up, I did have it on my list. The Naturally Dairy campaign is going to not just run through the month of June, which is Dairy Month, but that's going to continue on through the end of the year, correct?
Yep, absolutely. They've got a series of events and themes planned out for each month. When we get back into athletics in the fall, we're going to have a campaign about drinking milk to re-energize and as a protein drink. It's been proven, chocolate milk's been proven as one of the best refuelers that are out there for athletes. So there's a series of events that the Dairy Princesses, Cornell Cooperative Extension, and the Lewis County IDA have been working together for this whole Naturally Dairy campaign. There's a Facebook page. You should go out and like the Naturally Dairy Facebook page, and all kinds of great stuff about how we can support the dairy industry in Lewis County.
And I'm sure we'll have a little more on that after tomorrow's meeting when we sit through the presentation and can give you a little more detail on what some of the events coming up are and things like that.
Absolutely.
So also on the docket for tomorrow night is going to be, we have a public hearing scheduled, and that's a public hearing for a local law increasing salaries of certain county officials.
Correct.
So I think we kind of discussed this a little bit last month, but with the all the labor contracts now in place, now you can go through with the management employees and kind of work out the cost of increased living for that.
Yep. So typically in Lewis County, what we've done is we have 3 public employee unions, and once those union contracts are settled, then management compensation is taken on. If you are a public officer, so myself, Commissioner of Highway, Commissioner of Social Services, those positions that are considered public officer positions have to be changed by resolution.
Okay.
And this resolution updates those changes. Compensation is in line with what has been agreed upon with the unions.
Okay.
So we kind of follow suit with what the public unions are given.
And it's about a 2%,
Yes.
generally about 2%.
Correct.
For everyone. Okay. And then those will take effect starting next month, or do they go retroactive?
They will be retroactively applied, yeah.
All right. Getting into one thing we were going to start looking at a little closer was the contingency fund transfers. So we do have 4 of them that are going to be coming up. There's resolutions for at tomorrow night's meeting. So $4,750 is going to be transferred from the legislative contingency fund, and that's going to be for an increase of dues to the Fort Drum Regional Liaison Organization.
So just to provide a little context here, we traditionally set aside about 2% of the total budget. So our budget runs about $45 million. We set aside a little under $1 million for contingency. Expenses that come up that we weren't certain if we were going to have. Maybe we had an idea that they'd be there, or things that we didn't expect at all.
Right.
And when those things come up, we draw those funds out of the contingency fund. And as Nick mentioned, one of the things this month that we're going to be using contingency funding for is for the county's membership to the Fort Drum Regional Liaison Organization, the FDRLO, which I think is now kind of rebranding as Advocate Drum, but we are obviously one of the 3 counties that are a member of that organization, and membership dues have increased for counties. Jefferson County is going up to $10,000, and St. Lawrence County and Lewis County have agreed to go up to $5,000. So we'll be asking the board to approve that increase up to $5,000 so that we can continue to support that organization and continue to their mission of advocating for Fort Drum in our region.
Right. And like you said, contingency funds are appropriated. They just don't have a specific line item that
Correct.
they're assigned to. So just thought it's a good idea to let people know when most parts of the budget are the appropriations are made to a specific line item. So
Yep.
this is kind of the pool of money that things that come up that, like you said, that were unexpected or might.
I like to think of it as you've got your savings account and your checking account.
Yep.
Your savings account is our fund balance that that's not appropriated for this year's budget. That's separate. Then you've got your checking account, which is a pool of money that we plan on potentially spending, but we don't know what necessarily is going to come up.
Okay. So another part that came out of the contingency is a transfer to the transportation department. That's for $25,000, and that's for an emergency culvert repair.
Yeah.
And back it was probably about a month ago, we got quite a rainstorm, and some of the it was pretty damaging on the Burdick's Crossing Road, and the highway had to go in. If you wanted to talk a little bit about
Well, there's a culvert there, actually, Nick. The storm kind of made us aware of the issue, but what had been happening is the water around the culvert was always at a level that basically there was always a layer of water sitting in the culvert, and it was an old culvert, metal, and it rusted out essentially and needs to be replaced, and it's a big long culvert of like 60 feet, I think. And so we have a budget for culverts every year, but we don't expect to have to replace, one that large and that unexpectedly. So I think we're setting aside $25,000 to do that project, buy the culvert and some construction on the road for that section. And the new technology they have with these culverts, it's steel wrapped in plastic and rubber, so hopefully it'll last us another 100 years. So.
Right. And I think, to point out, the highway department kind of comes up with their plans, so, a little bit before now, what bridges, what roads are going to be working on for the year. So when something unexpected like that comes up.
They've got about a 5-year plan where we know what roads, we always do the culverts the year before we pave the roads, because you don't want to pave a new road and then have to dig out all the culverts and ruin your new paving. So we try to stick to a tight schedule, and we try to stick to that 5-year plan, but sometimes we find these things that we weren't quite certain of, and you got to replace them. So.
Looks like $5,000 is going to be moved from the contingency fund to the Office for the Aging, and that's for legal services for the Office of the Aging. So
Correct.
We've heard this come up in a few committee meetings, and you've explained it pretty well. So.
Well, last year we had to increase this line item from contingency as well, and it's great when you've got a service that is so in such high demand in the county. It's a good thing, but sometimes those services can cost us a little more. This particular service is something that Office for the Aging offers for aging citizens in Lewis County. It helps them with power of attorney paperwork. It helps them with wills and other types of property and asset transfers, and it's of no cost to the elderly population to use that service. We only ask for a donation, and we typically go through that. We put $5,000 in there at the beginning of every year, and we always go through it so quickly. So we're adding another $5,000 to that line item. Honestly, we could probably have it, as much money as we put in there is as much money as the service would use. But we try to be conservative, and
it just limits the amount of people that can use the service, the less amount of money that's in
Absolutely.
there. So expanding a little bit opens it up to a few more people can get the.
Yep, we've got a waiting list, so we're happy that we can expand that service.
And then the last contingency fund transfer is the $33,000, which is the matching fund for something we're going to get into here right now, the Central Lewis Water Study. So we also have the resolution here to sign the agreement with the state. So this is basically a grant that Lewis County is going to be getting, and we have to put some matching money aside to get the grant of, I think the grant was like $2.7 297.
So
297.
traditionally, you don't budget for grants because you're not sure,
Right.
how exactly the money's going to come in. So that's why we have this contingency account that provides some cushion. But it's $33,000, which is our share, which is only 10% of a much larger amount.
Yep.
But basically, you may have heard about the water study that was done on the systems in the southern end of the county. Basically, it's allowed the southern end to map their systems. It's allowed them to identify issues and help them create a path forward to keep those systems viable and redundant. That's a big part of it, is redundancy. The more you can connect these systems together, the more redundancy they'll have when one system fails. The theory is exactly the same for the central part of the county. We're looking to study those systems that are in the central part of the county and help them map them out, know exactly where our assets are, know which assets need to be addressed, and hopefully look at some ways where we can link up the systems together and provide some redundancy for emergencies like we had this summer.
Yep.
If the Watson system and the Krogan system, well, maybe not Krogan, that's kind of far,
Right.
But if the Watson system that's going in, for example, were connected to the Lowville system, that would provide some redundancy during times when one of the systems fails. Copenhagen a couple summers ago had an issue with their water system. If there was a way to hook those up to the neighbors and provide some redundancy, then we can all help each other out and have a stronger overall system. So this will help us plan and move forward with some of that type of stuff.
So the 300,000 for the 330 that will be set aside for the study is, like you said, just for each of the municipalities to kind of gauge what they have, what kind of redundancies are available, things like that.
And what they need to do moving forward.
Right.
We've got a lot of age. These systems are really old,
But
and it helps us to identify what areas are stronger than others, what areas need to be replaced soon, and what can go a little bit longer. So it's just an overall study of everything we've got, and hopefully helps us provide a path forward using that information.
And it is up to each municipality whether they choose to participate in the study or not?
Correct, yeah. The county is the grant administrator, but we don't own the water systems and we don't have jurisdiction over the towns and villages, so it's really their decision whether they want to participate. But generally, we've had good participation from the municipalities, which is positive.
Okay. And is the deadline for joining the Central Water Study already passed, or
No,
I know we've got a lot of the towns were involved.
There's only one. We've got almost 100% participation. The Village of Lowville is the last outstanding party that hasn't agreed to participate, but we can take them on, really at any point.
Okay.
It doesn't really change the scope of the study too much. So we'd love to have them aboard, and I know that they're thinking about it. So hopefully by the time we get moving this summer, we'll know our final participation.
Right. It seems like they would be a big player in a Central Lewis Water Study.
I agree.
With the other, okay.
Yep. And that's
Making the connections with the other ones, it might be hard to do it around their
Right.
system if their system isn't included.
It would make an awful lot of sense, in my opinion, for the village to come on board and participate in that study. It would help not only them but their neighbors, understand what the capability of this, part of the county is moving forward. But that's certainly their.
And there's no cost to
decision.
the municipalities.
There's no
and
cost. No, this is
Generally, they're not signing. They're not signing away rights to anything. This is just participating in the study to see what could be done in the future. So
absolutely.
it's
correct.
It's not locking them into saying they have to
No.
connect their system to anybody else.
No, really, there's not much they'd have to provide other than maybe some of their
Some
guys
data
to their data and some of their guys to go help the us figure out where assets are and that work with the consultant to understand what their system looks like and how it operates. But they're not committing to anything. We're not looking to get anyone to commit or give up any rights in terms of their home rule for their water system. That's not the goal. This is just an effort by our planning department to address one of the hugest issues in the county, and that is the aging municipal infrastructure. So I feel it's a worthy effort for the county to be focused on all the things that we can do to help our municipalities keep their systems relevant moving forward.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. We also have a resolution in here, and I think we covered this maybe a few months ago when it came out of committee, but there was kind of a gap between committee approving it and it going to the full board. But this is the tip fee schedule increases for the solid waste department.
Yes,
So
yes.
The legislators, it's not a done deal, but we've got the schedule in here,
Yeah.
what all the rates will be. So the legislators will be deciding if that's something that they want to move forward tomorrow
Correct.
night. And then if that goes ahead and goes forward, we can go ahead and share what all the rates will be. But generally,
it's fairly straightforward. It's
Yeah.
it's an increase up front to catch up a little bit. We haven't had an increase, I don't think, since 2008 or 9. It's been quite a while since we've done an increase, and that's how it should be. We're running an efficient operation, but just like the cost of household items increases, our cost of operation increases. Wages and insurance and those types of things
fuel jump,
increase
we've seen
in
them.
fuel. So. And our physical plant, gets a little bit older every year, so we're looking to address those concerns with a small rate increase. I would point out as well that Lewis County, even with these increases, remains one of the cheapest tip fees in the Tri-County area by quite a bit, actually. So our citizens are still getting a good deal.
Right.
I shouldn't say our citizens, our users, the ones that are engaging in the solid waste system are getting a pretty good deal. And after that, the one thing that I'm particularly happy with this resolution is that we didn't just increase it one time and then let it go. We have a tendency in Lewis County to put things off when it comes to rate increases because nobody likes them. But my philosophy is if you put in a small increase, 1.5%, 2% every year, nobody really feels it, and it keeps you on pace with the cost of living. So this is an increase up front, but then it's 2% a year for the next 2 years, so that we don't fall so far behind again that we have to have a big jump. So it's just common sense. What comes in has to come out. I think we run a very efficient operation over there compared to our neighboring counties. Our prices are still very good, and we appreciate the users of the system. With your patience, and nobody likes a rate increase, but we have to keep our system relevant too. So
So it looks like bottom line, and these will be effective July 1st if it goes through. $5 per ton increase to haulers, and 25 cents per bag increase for if you're a resident bringing a single bag of trash into the landfill. So that's the gist
and
of
then
it.
2%,
and then 2% going forward
in
for the next
19
few
and
years.
20.
Yeah, perfect. And then wrapping up, it looks like there's going to be a couple resolutions on here that you guys will be having a public hearing for in July. So the first one is some ATV trail additions to the county ATV trail system, and that's the Mulpus properties.
That's Mulpus property that we've been talking about. We've seen the seekers go through, the environmental reviews have gone through. So this is just additions to our trail system that we're looking to make in some old forested property.
And that's in the town of Diana.
Yes.
Up in the northern part of the county.
Yep.
So this is a pretty large addition to the trail system.
It is. The Mulpus property was a large logging operation, and we were able to secure through some of their easements some land. And I would also add that we're working very closely with the DEC on getting some access through part of their property that they've acquired through the Mulpus. So I think this particular project has potential to really be a model about how outdoor motorized recreation can be done hand in hand with the state environmental conservation and responsibly and policed properly in a way that is good for the environment but also good for our economy, and I'm hoping that it could be a really good model for us.
Perfect. And then the last one, it will be a public hearing on July 3rd for the community development block grants. Looks like there's a $200,000 CFA application for the IDA. So you were talking about that.
Yeah, it's a revolving loan fund that would allow them to make small business loans in Lewis County, and they're hoping to acquire that money through the Community Development Block Grant, which is a federal program that flows through the state. So they're looking to acquire that money. In order to do that, they have to have a public hearing. So we'll be And I'm sure that'll be a riveting public hearing, Nick. One of those that we've got, people
Right.
just really are riled up about community development block grants.
Right, exactly. But it's part of the process.
It's
and
part of the process.
You gotta
Right.
push them through, right?
Right.
All right. Well, I think that's kind of a good overview of some of the bigger items that'll be going on at tomorrow night's meeting. So again, like Ryan said, at 4:15, if you want to catch the Naturally Dairy campaign kickoff, you can come over for that. And then the regular meeting gets underway at 5 p.m. So we hope to see everyone there. And thanks for your time today, Ryan.
Yeah, thank you,
Appreciate
Nick. Of
talking.
course.
Yep.